or toll free at 888-67-NORMAL.
Activism begins with ACT. The Russ Belville Show features the stories of hardworking grassroots activists working for an end to prohibition in today's activist agenda.
The hour time for our Listen to Your Mother segment in our activist agenda. And joining us from probably one of the most difficult places to be a medical marijuana activist, Fargo, North Dakota. Is that right? We got Patty Mary on the line.
Hi.
Hi, Patty. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. It's pretty hot up here. How are you?
Pretty hot in Fargo, North Dakota. What's the temp out there?
We are sitting at 98 hot degrees.
What? 98 degrees in Fargo? That's crazy. Oh, man. Don't worry. There is no such thing as global warming. Anyway,
Right.
Let's get into our topic today. You're with Moms for Marijuana International, and you're coordinating out there in North Dakota. When did you get involved with that?
In North Dakota, a couple years ago. Last year, I fought for the ballot. I was out there getting signatures every day, only for our lovely football team to forge signatures. Mm-hmm. So we were tossed out over that. That was a huge disappointment.
Yeah, and if you don't know what we're talking about there, North Dakota, you have the initiative process. You're trying to get, and this is an initiative for medical, if I understand right, and some of the hired petition gatherers who were football players there at the local university went and screwed you over.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
yep, and they got a slap on the wrist. They, forgery, and they walked.
Was this a situation where they were getting paid per signature or something like that?
They were getting paid per hour, and it was, $15 an hour.
Well, it's a shame that happened, but how is the support there as you were going out and getting signatures? Did you feel like the people of North Dakota are ready for this?
Yes, they are. The support was amazing, from nurses to doctors to, lawyers, just everyday mothers, fathers. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's good. That's really, really good to hear, because I think a lot of people out there listening would think of North Dakota as very rural and very conservative. So what is it that you think has turned people around on wanting to support this issue?
Well, being lied to, and now just things coming out about more awareness of what cannabis can do for us. And I've ran across many nurses, for example, that would say they're tired of seeing cancer patients, die horribly. And I'm sure that's probably one of them right there.
Yeah, I would think so. Now, what is it that brought you to getting involved in this activism?
I am sick, and I need it. And not to be able to have it and be treated like a criminal, it sucks. It really sucks. And
you've been able to treat your condition on other occasions with cannabis and found it to be, superior to the other medications?
You bet. I come from Colorado, and I remember way back in the days before it was even legalized, being down in Casa Park rallying, and I was 16, 17 then, and I knew that there was something to this plant.
So why, if you're sick and you need it, why leave Colorado and return to North Dakota?
Well, I didn't become sick until I was in this great state of North Dakota.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I hear a lot, why don't you just move? And that's great. I would love to go back home, but the circumstances aren't going to I can't make it back there right now. And I also would like to rally on the state of North Dakota. Let's get this done, because we need to be done with this prohibition. It's stupid.
And when I hear that, because I'm coming to you right here from Boise, Idaho, at the home. I'm at the home at Lindsay Reinhardt's house, and she's a patient in Idaho. Another place where it's tough to fight for medical marijuana. And people have said that to her too. They've said, "Well, if you're sick, why don't you just move to a medical marijuana state?" Like, number one, like, it's easy to just up and move in this country, but number two, why should someone be forced to leave their home because they're sick?
Right. And what makes the other states so more special than my state? I mean, we're all one in this, aren't we? So, I mean, there's no difference.
So what's happening now as far as trying to get something passed for North Dakota? Is there a new initiative?
Not yet. I have talked to some legislators, and they seem to think it won't pass, but we'll keep our fingers crossed and keep forging forward and see what we can come up with. And education and awareness and discussion is the key.
Yeah, and one of the tough things about being an activist in a small state, and I don't mean geographically small, but population-wise, there's not a whole lot of people in North Dakota, just like there's not a whole lot of people in Idaho. And when you stick your head up, you're the first gopher that they want to pound down, right? Everybody else is kind of keeping in the closet, being secretive about their use. And when you stand up to be an activist and to try to pass an initiative, it puts a target on your back. So how has that felt? And have you been able to stay out of trouble? Has there been any repercussions from your activism?
Not so far, thank God. I stay out of trouble as much as I can. My kids have recently, I had a discussion with them. I had to sit down with all of them. My oldest, no, she's 20. And I had to sit down with my 16-year-old, my 13-year-old, and my 10-year-old and just say, hey, this is how it is, and they accepted it. And so one of them just might be a future activist.
Well, that's good to hear. I know one of the scary things about being an activist and a mom is the way that family services, child protective services can be brought in these situations where they say, well, just because you had marijuana, you're endangering your child. Has this caused you to have to go into any other, greater security or being careful?
Oh, I am. I don't. It's, it's not around. It's not in the house. It's nothing like that. So it's, you have to be pretty safe up here because, especially when you're drawing attention to yourself and then they want to come around. And I've already had them in my house asking many questions, but it's just because I talk openly with my children. And it's a shame that they can't talk openly with their friends. My 10-year-old, he had a young kid in his class that had cancer, and he really wanted to speak to her about Rick Simpson's oil.
Sure. Boy, it's such a shame, that this knowledge can't be passed on the people that need it because of the fear.
Very much so.
Now,
and I'm excited that I'm in the organization with Moms for Marijuana. They're such wonderful women, and
oh yeah, and I think it's the coalition of women getting together trying to fight this drug war that's really going to push it over the tipping point. Moms for Marijuana doing great work. Before we get to another question, why don't you tell people how they can get in touch with you if they're in North Dakota and want to be a part of Moms for Marijuana in North Dakota?
They can reach me on Facebook. It's the North Dakota Moms for Marijuana, and there's also the Fargo Moms for Marijuana. That's the subchapter. They can also look for me on Twitter, and that's MMJMom.
All right.
That's about it right there.
MMJMom. You got that one. That's a good Twitter handle there. We're speaking with Patty Mary from North Dakota Moms for Marijuana, and regarding trying to get an initiative passed there in North Dakota, I'm just checking the Google, and I see I'm trying to find out how many signatures you guys need. Do you know what your signature count is needed for an initiative there?
At the time, it was a little over, I believe it was 17,000, but we ended up with over 21. Mm-hmm. And even after they threw out the ones that they forged, I still believe we were over.
And then probably they check their validity rate and then all that kind of stuff, and they always try to find a way to deny these sorts of petitions. So. And people listening, if you've been a petitioner in another state, you've been in California or Oregon or Washington, and you're hearing this and you're going 17,000 signatures. Well, could do that in an afternoon, right? Well, we're talking about a state where there's 700,000 people, and it's really big. So, Patty, is there any rules when you're getting these signatures, like there have to be so many from each district or anything like that, or can you just hit the city?
You just hit the city, and you try and get the downtown was the best. There were places I was kicked out of. You know, we had their guidelines where we had to stay, and one place I got kicked out of, but then I was called my director right away, and then they got me in, but then we just figured it wasn't worth it to stick around that area, so.
Yeah, well, at least you don't have that district requirement. There's some states where their signature gathering, you can't just go to the big cities. You have to get a certain percentage from each county or district, and so at least you don't have that to fight with. All right, so in North Dakota, what's it like as far as just being a cannabis consumer? I imagine the penalties are pretty dire.
Oh, they are. You can go to jail for a long time, and it's strict. Minnesota, on the other side, it's decriminalized, so you just get a little fine, slap on the wrist. You know, if you got I think it's less than an ounce.
Yeah,
but,
I think it's less than an ounce.
Here, now, over the border, it's pretty harsh.
Is there any, we've been talking about a medical marijuana petition, but you just mentioned Minnesota being decriminalized, and that's something that happened in the 1970s. Would there be any support for decriminalization, maybe as a cost-saving measure in North Dakota?
Wow. You know, I wouldn't even know if they would even be up to that.
Yeah. It might be a while before we can get people's minds around that idea. Now, when you tell people that you're with a group called Moms for Marijuana, does that raise any eyebrows when you're talking to other women in North Dakota?
Yes, it does, because they wonder, what are you? What do you do? And we're not a bunch of pot smokers or anything like that. We're a grassroots network of parents and citizens around the world. And we just focus on cannabis awareness, education, discussion. It's time to thoroughly research and openly discuss the many benefits of this cannabis plant. How the war on marijuana is negatively affecting the future generations of this earth. You know, it's just terrible.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, Patty, Mary, activists like you that are fighting in those deep red states are some of my favorite people in the world. Thanks for joining us here, and good luck with Moms for Marijuana in North Dakota.
Thank you so much, Rush.
All right, stay tuned. Radical Rant is next. We're going to look at the GAO report on Obama's 21st century drug war policies.